We're so busy in the morning. Hi.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. So today's sermon is titled "A Pleasing Offering." Hebrews chapter 4 and 6. Can we? It's not 4 to 6, but it's 4 and 6. So can we all read it together aloud? It's just 2 verses. Okay, ready? Let's begin. By faith, Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him, accepting his gifts. And through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. Sorry, he doesn't spit. He speaks. Verse 6, and with that faith, it is impossible to please him, for whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. So there are 2 kinds of uncomfortable talks in church. And so one is involving a topic that involves a letter, actually a word, or 3-letter word, sex. So, I mean, it's rarely preached. It's, and I don't think I've ever preached on it. In fact, out of how many years? I don't know if you ever have, Dr. Joward.
I used to do some of your Valentine's Day.
There you go. Yeah, it would be a special occasion to bring it up. Like it would have to be a special occasion to bring it up. And thankfully, that's not what I'm preaching on today. Okay, I'm going to talk about the other uncomfortable talk, which is money. Okay, the money talk is always uncomfortable in church. Okay, so offering is a sensitive topic. It's a lot of preachers are uncomfortable with it because whenever they do, there's always a controversy that floats around. And if there isn't, then thank the Lord, seriously. and I'm going to talk about it today, but it's so important. And what it does is if we understand why God commands us, commands us to give offering, it changes the perception of how we should handle our money. So let's talk about that. A church asking for more donation or more offering often becomes a taboo. I don't know. It's difficult. The church members already give a lot, and then if an occasion rises, church leadership has to ask for more money, and you can sort of, not everybody's going to be smiling and say, "Oh, here's more money for you, sir." Here's money. It's sort of, it's really uncomfortable. It's difficult, and that's a natural human reaction, because money is directly related to our survival, if you think about it. I mean, with money, we can't feed ourselves if you don't have money. We can't afford to have a home if you don't have money. And we can't clothe ourselves if you don't have money. So it's not just about being greedy, but at the same time, it's directly, linked to our survival. So that's why it's so uncomfortable. But here's the thing. Our God doesn't just demand unreasonably. Okay? And let me tell you right off the bat, giving offering is entirely different than giving a sacrificial offering, just as the Old Testament times, okay, Israelites did. Giving sacrificial offering is to atone for our sins. But giving monetary offering is for a completely different reason. And I will tell you why. So giving offering, first of all, what I believe is this. Am I getting a little bit of feedback here? I'm going to turn this down a little bit. See if that helps. A little bit. Okay, good. So giving offering, what I believe is this, fulfills the Great Commandment. First of all, what is the Great Commandment? Anybody? Does anybody know what the Great Commandment is? Except for Dr. Chalmers. I know he's looking at me like, I want to tell everybody about this. Please do, sir.
Right. I'm sorry.
No, I just hope that the kids would know.
Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 6. Behold, Israel, the Lord Him with all your heart, and all your mind, and all your strength, and all your soul.
Thank you.
And for us, Jesus says, Leviticus 19:18 is like it, love your neighbor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So basically, so in Matthew 22:37, he goes over it again when a young lawyer, in fact, asks him, and he goes, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets." So what does the great commandment have to do with giving offering? Well, here's the thing. Okay, we'll get into that in a sense, but let's understand the great commandment first. For me, what this represents is it's the sum of all of our relationships. Okay, there are only two types of relationships that we have, and it's the one we have with our God. Okay, and this is the first relationship we should focus on. Okay, before we focus our relationship with anybody else. Our relationship with God is the foremost important relationship in our lives, okay? And second is then with each other, okay? Love your neighbors as you love yourself. So and the second most important relationship is, there are only two kinds. So second is the relationship that we have with each other. So how do we then fulfill this great commandment to love God and to love our neighbors when we give offering? Here is how. So when we give offering, we acknowledge that God is the creator and He's the owner of all things on earth. Psalms 24:1. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. See, God created the earth. And we know this. And God is the owner of all things on earth. We have a God. We love God. We love a God. We love a God who is as DJ says, omnipotent and omnipotent. Okay? We love a God who is in charge of it all, who is the owner of it all. Okay? If God doesn't allow it, it will not happen. Okay, if God doesn't want you to have a car, you won't have a car. No matter how hard you try, or no matter how your parents want you to have a car, you will not be able to have a car, or drive rather. Okay, and if you want to marry someone, if God doesn't want you to marry that person, you will not have that spouse. Okay, have that person as your spouse, and that's how it is. So everything that you have in your life, God gave it to you, or God allowed you to have it, right? So it's God's, and everything that you have essentially belongs to God. Okay, so when we give, so all of our finances, possessions, who we are and what we are all of God's blessings given to us. So when we choose to give 10% of our earnings, that's called tithing. In Korean, it's called shibiljo. Okay, how many of you have heard of the term shibiljo or tithing? Tithes. Okay, yeah, right. Okay, put your hands down. I know you guys don't earn your own money yet, so maybe not. But it's giving 10% of all of your earnings. So when you give the tithe. When you give tithe, what we are saying is we choose to give God the credit His due and acknowledge that our life is being lived for the glory of God, not for the glory of me. Okay, so Abraham, I believe, is the first recorded tither. So when he went to rescue Lot, his nephew, from the four kings. Right, it's the four kings. I can't remember all the kings, but all these kings. And Lot was living in Sodom and Gomorrah at the time, and these four kings invaded Sodom and Gomorrah, and they kidnapped Lot, and Abraham goes to the rescue. So he goes to war against the four kings. That just won a victory. And guess what happened? Abraham won because God was with him. So Abraham, he pledges, well, I will, and what he does is he gives all of his war spoils, not all of it, sorry, 10 1/10, the 10% of his war spoils to the priest, God's priest at the time, Melchizedek. Okay, I always have a hard time saying his name, Melchizedek. In Korean, it's Melchizedek. Anyways, and then secondly, let's look at Jacob. And Jacob, you guys all know the story of how he wrestled God in his dream, right? And he wanted God to bless him, so he was wrestling God, the whole night. And what happens is God finally says, Jacob, I'm going to bless you, God, the covenant I made with Abraham still stands with you. You're going to be blessed with the same, the covenant I made with Abraham. And when Jacob saw that, he was so blessed. He says, 10% of all of my earnings I will give to you, God. Okay, so tithing is acknowledging that God, you are in control. God, you are the one who blesses me with everything that I have. So and rightfully, the 10% of it is yours. So funny story of me tithing, I still remember, is when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. That's when I first had my allowance. It was about equivalent of $1, 1,000 won. And I was in Korea back then, so it wasn't much. So I literally calculated 10% of $1. So what is it? 10 cents. And I proudly gave that, as tithe. And in my 2nd grade, and my mom was like, "You gave 10 cents as your tithe? You couldn't give half of it?" I was like, "But you said 10% of it." But I believe that God accepted it. With a glad heart, because I believe He accepted it as a pleasing offering. Because my heart was there and acknowledged that when I received that $1, it was God's. So, and then secondly, when we give, we love others by giving up that one thing that is the hardest for us to give up, which is money. Okay, the hardest thing for us to give up is not your friends, it's not your friendship. The hardest thing for you to give up is not your spouse, but I think the hardest thing for us to give up is actually money. Okay, so 1 Timothy 6:10 says, "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs." Guys, money is a good thing, but it's also an evil thing. Okay, it can lure somebody. It says the craving for money made somebody wander away from their faith. They made somebody give up Jesus for the love of their money, because they had, for that craving to make more money, to have more money. They chose money over Jesus. And this is, if you think about it, this is in the early church, where it wasn't long after Jesus was ascended into heaven. It's not like now, where it's like 2,000 something years later. But some of the people who have actually met Jesus and who knew who He was, the memory was still fresh, but yet money still prevailed in some people's hearts. So money is that scary, because you can easily see the power, the convenience, the glamour it can bring. I mean, guys, let's be honest. When you go buy, I talk about shoes a lot because I like shoes. And that's about the only thing I can actually shop for, because nothing really fits me after having a baby. So when I go buy shoes, it's like this. First, I start looking at these $30, some of the cheaper shoes that are at like Nordstrom Rack, okay? And I'm like, oh yeah, these shoes are cute, but they're not exactly what I want. The comfort level is okay, but the designs are just okay. I feel like I could do better. So I move on to Nordstrom, okay? Not the Nordstrom Rack, but I move on to Nordstrom, and I see a $50 pair of shoes, and they're so much better. And I'm thinking, well, this is the design I like, and this is the comfort I want. So, what's $20 more? These shoes are going to last me longer. So I end up spending more money, because And and you know, and it's just $20 if you think about it, right? But like this clearly shows that you know it's hard to get away once you get used to the convenience of having a better option. It's hard for you to part with it, right? One of the most prominent characteristics of sin is being self-centered, to be self-centered, right? My benefit, my profit, my wants and needs always come before we place others first. That's why money is such an excellent indicator to see if we are loving our neighbors as we love ourselves, because how do we spend our money? Okay? How do we spend our money? Let's look, I mean, for those of you who have a bank account, you can go to your bank statement and you know, go by transaction, and you can tell where you have spent it on. And I'm ashamed to say, I go transaction by transaction, and it's like Starbucks. Oh, that's how I needed coffee. Okay, and so I go to Whole Foods. Oh, that time this was for baby, but I ended up getting something for myself too. And I go by transaction, and there's not really much that I spend on others, and I'll be rejoicing that I donated $5 to a humane society. You know, I'm like, oh yeah, I donated $5 to it. Yeah, I did something for somebody else, and oh yeah, I donated $5 to another organization that helps dogs. Yay! You know, and think about that, guys. How much do we actually spend for others? Right? So therefore, when we give monetary offering, not just your tithe, you know, when you give more, it's a resolve of a heart to show that we live for God and not for ourselves. We love our neighbors and not just me. Okay, John Wesley, the founder of Methodist Church, lived an incredible life. I didn't actually know this until I did some research, and here's how he lived. John Wesley was born in 1703. In 1731, he began to limit his expenses so that he would have more money to give to the poor. At first, here's the math, guys, follow with me. His income was 30 pounds. And he found that he could actually live on 28, so he gave two pounds away. Okay. The second year, his income actually doubled. And guess what happened? But he figured 32 was just enough. So he kept, remember, his income doubled, so he was earning 60 pounds now. But he lived on 32. Okay. And in the third year, his income jumped to 90 pounds, and he ended up giving away 62 pounds. That's more than half his made. That's incredible. And it keeps going and going. It says in his long life, he lived to be 87 or something. His income went all the way up to 1,400 pounds. But guess how much he lived on? Not much more than 32. So this actually baffled the English tax commissioners, that they investigated in 1776 that this man must have silver spoons that, or silver plates that he was not paying taxes on. So and he wrote them, I have 2 silver spoons at London and 2 at Bristol, and this is all the plate I have at present, and I shall not buy any more while so many round me want bread. So he was basically saying, I'm not going to buy any more silver plates. Well, many people are needing food. He died in 1791 at the age of 87. And by then he ended up giving away 30,000 pounds he had earned in his life. Okay, and that's a lot of money. And realized that to live like Mr. Wesley is not an easy feat. Okay. Reading this article, I repented, actually, because I realized a lot of things that I have already in my possession are, I could have spent money on elsewhere. You know, I didn't really need this, I didn't really need that, and there were just too many things around me that I actually could have spent to help others. But it's not easy. I mean, you know, I don't make much myself. I don't make much. So but still, when I give tithe, it's a struggle. Okay, I'm writing this out, but it's a small amount compared to many. But I'm still struggling because it's not easy. You know, this tithe that I give with this money, I could pay my bills. I have credit card bills that I can pay. I have, I could invest this in a life insurance so it'll get ready for my future, and I could have used it for so much more for constructive purposes. But then God reminds me in Malachi 3:10, bring the full tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house, and thereby put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven for you and pour down for you a blessing until there is no more need. So God is saying, okay, why don't you pay your tithe and test me to see if I don't provide for you what you need. No, God is not an investment plan. If you put your 10% down, you get 30% back. Okay? God is not an investment plan. God is not a genie. God, I gave you my 10%. Can you give me more? Okay, God's not a genie that gives you more because you gave God your 10%. God rightly deserves that 10%. But this is the guarantee that God gives you, and God never breaks His promise. It says you will have sufficiency. You will have enough. And giving is not about receiving tax benefits. Okay? And it's not about looking good or feeling good about yourself because you gave. But it's about your heart towards God. Hebrews 11:6, and without faith it is impossible to please Him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that He exists, and that He rewards those who seek Him. Do you trust, do you believe that God is truly the owner of it all? Including your job, your home, your car, your phone, the money in your possession, how much ever it may be? Do you trust God when He challenges you to test Him on providing you with enough? I'll tell you, it's not easy to give up money. Even for pastors, it's not easy. In Korea, it's sort of infamous that pastors are not taxed on their income because they're clergymen. And, a lot, they've been criticized for that. And I know a lot of, Korean pastors who have a hard time giving up money and luxury. They would have chauffeurs that drive them everywhere. And even myself, like I said before, sometimes giving tithe is a challenge for me. But when I give, somehow in the end, it makes up. Everything sort of makes up for it. That little amount that I give, that I'm so worried that I won't be able to pay my bills, God makes it up for it. Somehow. I didn't even work for it, but it works out in the end. 2 Corinthians 9:6. The point is this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion. For God loves a cheerful giver, and God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. So, like I said, God is not an investment plan. Just because you give more doesn't mean that you get more. It says it's about the heart. Okay? Don't give reluctantly. If you're going to give with joy. Because you're glorifying God when you give. And not under compulsion, it says. Sometimes we're like, yeah, I'm going to do this because it feels good. It's not about that. Our reward is guaranteed when we give. God rewards those who seek Him, which is read in Hebrews chapter 6. And we will have abundancy in every good work. We remember brothers Cain and Abel, who, they became known for what? Cain as the first murderer, actually, right? He was the first murderer in the history of mankind. And Abel as the man from whom God accepted his offering. Cain and Abel. Cain was a farmer. Abel kept sheep. And and God refused Cain's offering and accepted Abel's, and for some reason, I found that very unfair. Like for a long time, it's like, why wouldn't God accept Cain's? I'm sure He has a good reason, but I didn't know what that good reason was. You guys ever wonder why God wouldn't accept Cain's? It looks like Cain sort of tried. It looks like Cain tried to give good offering, but so why wouldn't God accept Cain's? And it's not mentioned in the Bible. That's the thing. It doesn't clearly mention it. So, and some pastors, some preachers said that it's because, Cain offered grain versus Abel's sheep. Jesus representing sheep. That's one explanation I heard, and the other was, what was it that Cain had hidden sin. That wasn't mentioned in the Bible, but it was never clearly really explained to me. And then I came across this article by John Bloom. And he says, one thing we hear is that God only accepts faith-fueled offerings, just as we read in 4 and 6. By faith, Abel offered to a God more acceptable sacrifice. He says, at first, God, it's significant, John Bloom says, that God doesn't provide details about either Cain's or Abel's offerings, the first ever recorded in the Bible. In the story, I imagine Cain trying to win God's approval with an impressive-looking offering. But it could have just have easily been a stingy offering or an exactly precise offering. The point is that right from the beginning, God draws our attention away from what fallen humans think is important. This is namely how our works can make us look impressive, to what God thinks is important, namely how our works reveal who we trust. Cain gave an offering according to his standards of what he believed to be the right offering for God. Whereas Abel trusted in God. It says our works reveal who we trust. Hebrews 13:5. Let your character be free from the love of money, being content with what you have. When we give or don't give an offering, so often we're focused on earthly ideas of giving. How much do we give, and to what worthy causes do we give? And what kind of benefit do we gain from giving? Let's be honest, because think about that when you give donations. There's so many charities out there. Let's think of it in terms of donations. There's so many worthy charities out there. It's like, okay, let's weigh where my heart's, let's weigh where it's more most effective. Yeah, so I think this is more, I think this benefits the kids more, so this is worthy more, but offering does not work like that. It was never about the earthly ideals, but it's about the idea, it's about how much you trust God, how much you trust in His